You don't have to engage unless you want to. Just as you have a choice to write a comment on social media and hit send, or make a post and hit publish, you have a choice to engage or not with any other person, and you get to choose how you do it if you do engage.
I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married with children.
It's been 12 years since we got this gang together.
And we're still running the rapids of living with a blended family.
And sometimes that is just not easy.
If you're looking for support and tools when it comes to divorce, step-parenting, co-parenting, and giving it your best,
you're in the right place.
We're talking about everything.
You ready to get this party started?
Always.
Hello. Welcome back. I am doing this episode just myself because I want to share personal experiences and something that really helped me during super hard times. And we mentioned this tool or this concept a lot on the podcast, but I'm going to go deeper on this episode because I am getting a lot of Instagram messages on this, and it might be different conflicts and different situations, but the common theme is how it's making that person feel. And I thought, you know what? I'm feeling the heat in a lot of these blended families, especially during the holiday season. So I want to go deep on a tool that I learned that literally changed my life and helped me in these situations where you feel like you have no control. I remember being at a stage of my separation and imminent divorce, panicking every single time my phone rang or buzzed. Or if I went to my computer and I refreshed my email, my stomach would drop of what was going to pop up, what was going to be in my inbox. And it was like I was in this constant state of panic, wondering what bomb was going to go off, what bad news was going to come today. And it was things like, am I going to get a text message from my ex and he's going to be angry about something? Is he going to hear something from his attorney who told him something my attorney said? Or am I going to get an email from my attorney's office with bad news? Like all these things, I remember in that phase of things just felt like they were falling apart, and it just got worse and worse. And any little thing would set me into high anxiety mode. It was awful. And I often refer to it as feeling terrorized all the time. If you've experienced anxiety and panic for good reason, or if you've experienced it for no reason, you know how stifling it can be. And it's horrible. It's anything but healthy. And it's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for the people in your life. If you're a parent, it's not healthy for your kids. It's just a bad state to be in. And it's interesting because I used to be someone who would not cry easily. I didn't, it wasn't that I didn't have emotions or, I might cry at a sad movie, but I had such a great upbringing and I didn't really have a lot of pain or hardship in my early years. And then divorce came, heartbreak came, and suddenly I had all of these emotions stirred up that anything could make me cry. And I just would repeat the same stories in my head, how sad it was that I didn't even give birth to my second baby. And here I was already getting divorced. I was sad that I felt I wasn't good looking enough, pretty enough, not smart enough, not anything enough. My self-esteem was so low, and I was nervous that on top of all that hurt, there would be more bad news lurking around the corner about how life was going to now get even harder, because that's just how life felt. And sure, there were little moments here and there of, friends trying to lift you up or getting inspired because I would read something or I'd talk myself into being okay. And this was all because I felt like something good is bound to happen. And this was my chance to really see what I was made of, right? Like that's why this is all happening. And I read all the relationship books maybe not all of them, but a good amount of relationship books. I listened to all the personal development gurus. I surrounded myself with good people that inspired me. And I would tell myself, it's all going to be okay. And those moments were very short in the very beginning. And if I was in one of those moments, dang it, when my phone went off and I would hear that buzz or the vibration of my phone, it was like, bam, I'm right in a state of mind again that something bad's going to happen. Instead of like, oh, that might just be somebody saying hello, or maybe it's just an ad, or who knows, it could be anything. But my mind immediately would go, crap, bad news. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is I want to share with you what got me through all of that and how things started to shift. And even if you relate to those moments or not, you have those moments where it's like, if you're not getting along with your ex or your step teen daughter or your husband's ex-wife, like if you feel like, oh my gosh, it's just one thing after another and I have no control. I'm really hoping that this episode gives you a different mindset and framework to work with, and just a very simple tool. That's really what I want. So here's the deal. I know people that have gone through divorce and have, gone through what they felt like that was the hardest thing ever. And then years later find themselves in another custody or financial battle with their ex. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought we were past that. And now it's so many years later and we're doing this again because some type of big life change happened. Maybe one person is getting married or there's a new child involved. There's something different happening and it's, stirs up all these emotions and egos get hurt. And the next thing you know, it's battle, battle, battle. And sometimes it's even worse than the original divorce. I've seen this actually a lot of times. And it's hard. It's really hard because a lot of people think, okay, now we're done with that, divorce paper signed, we can move on. And then these things happen again. And sometimes it's worse because now you've got all that old hurt that starts to surface again and all of that anger. And you have these same feelings again, where you're like, wait, I was doing so good. And now I find myself like snapping easily, or I'm irritable, or I'm scared every time my phone goes off. And you may have gotten divorced, but if you're still parenting with that person, they still have access to you, right? And we've talked about a lot here that there's so many different scenarios that can emerge from these situations. That's why we started this whole podcast. But obviously, there's so many things that can come up, and icky feelings can come back at any time. So for what I'm seeing lately is that the holidays are bringing out a lot of extra stress for some people. And then there's more disagreements, and then that's causing more feelings of anxiety. And so that's why I'm going to share with you what really helped me in these type situations and in other situations too, not just divorce, but in blended family in general, in dealing with each other's exes and dealing with business. I look back though, and I see that how bad it used to be, how bad that anxiety used to be, and the difference of where I'm at today and how much I've learned and how it's like we can deal with all these things. And it's because of the tools that I put in place in those early years of divorce. One thing I will say about myself is that I'm a really good student. If there's a solution to something, I want to put it into action right away. I am anxious to learn because I love solving problems. I'm sure we all say that. You're all like, of course, we all want to solve a problem. But sometimes people are skeptical and I'm not sure, or they're just maybe not a super good student, which can be a good thing or not. I don't know. I don't think it's either, but I just happen to be one of those people that's just like, tell me what to do and I will do the steps to get there because I want to get there as quickly as possible. I want to learn the lesson and I want peace as soon as I can have it. So when I started learning about these things, I was all about putting it into place right away, like right away. So Early in my divorce, which was also during a time where my hormones were crazy, for some of it, I was just about to give birth, and then it was right after giving birth. So as a female listeners, you know how hormonal you can get. I really needed like all the help I could get with mindset and controlling emotions. And I had friends and family who were a great support. But there's nothing like having a pro or somebody who's on the outside who knows the story but is not as emotionally involved because it's not their son-in-law or their friend or brother, whatever. It's definitely different and more productive, effective advice, in my opinion, when you can talk to a pro. And for me, I found a lot of that in definitely my therapist, but also in my attorney. And it's so funny because I've been meeting divorce attorneys during this whole journey of the Everything Always podcast, because they're guests on our show, or we've been a guest on their show, or we've done lives together. And a really good divorce attorney like has amazing advice. And it's because they've seen what happens and they've seen how emotions and things really get things out of control and in a place where they really don't need to go to. Like, it doesn't need to be that bad. So they often have the best advice. So, well, here's the deal. Like, I am not very good at hiding how I feel. I could be quiet, but then I'm not hiding it. And then somebody knows. Like, you could ask Mike and he will tell you, I know when she's upset. I know if she's angry. I'm not very good at hiding it. You can clearly see it. Some people are really good at it, but you can pretty much tell. And I remember sharing with my attorney the reasons that I was feeling so much anxiety. She could tell right away, by the way. That was my whole point. She could clearly see. She's like, you're jumping all over the place. You need to calm down. Like, you're on edge. Your adrenals are shot. And they were, and they totally were. It was like always being on massive amounts of caffeine, plus being emotional, plus being scared, like all of those things. And I was sharing with her some of the reasons. And she'd been through a divorce herself and had this amazing marriage that I looked up to, and stepchildren, blended family. And of course I thought to myself, well, one day, maybe one day. But in that moment, it was just like, how do I get through this period? And she was so calm. I thought, oh, when I tell her what happened, she's gonna be mad, but she would just be so calm. And it was so impressive and inspiring to me. And she had this confidence about her. And she also shared the stories that she had gone through. And she'd been one of the very first people to show me that I indeed was reacting to everything. And she said to me, do you realize that you are determining your mood for the day based on what someone else thinks and what their mood is? Holy crap. And maybe somebody told me that before. I don't know. Sometimes you hear things, but then there's that one moment where you really, really hear something and you have that epiphany and you're just like, oh crap. Like, what? And I just had this whole picture, and I felt embarrassed that I'm like, I let someone else determine my mood and determine how I should feel that day. So if you're happy with me, then I can be in a good mood. If you're upset with me, then I'm going to be in a bad mood. If you're yelling at me, then I'm going to be scared. It's like, what? How did I just hand the baton over and let somebody else control that? But I did, and it's all my fault. Totally my fault for doing that. But I allowed that. I would allow that with multiple people. And I just had never really seen it that way until she said it that way. And I was absolutely doing that every single day. So I could be in a good mood and be having positive thoughts, but that's because somebody else determined that I could be? What? Lame. So then I had to think about, like, why am I letting this happen? Why was I letting something or someone else determine how I get to feel? This is my brain. These are my emotions. It's my body. Why does somebody else get to determine that? And it was when I really realized that, I realized how unhealthy it was, not only emotionally, but definitely physically. I mean, you could see it. This was a time in my life where I had a baby. Usually you got some baby weight to lose. I weighed like nothing. I was losing weight every single day. I couldn't eat anything. I could barely make enough milk to nurse my daughter. I was drinking meal replacements just to like get something in me. That's how emotionally distraught I was allowing myself to be in those beginning months in that first year of divorce. I couldn't sleep. I mean, I would tell you some of the most peaceful moments of my life at that time were waking up in the middle of the night to feed Chloe, because it was just me and her. I had a toddler asleep in the other room, and it was dark, and it was like, nobody's awake now. Nobody's going to try to call me or text me. I'm not going to get emails. Nobody's in their office. There was nobody to disturb us. It was just the two of us. And oh gosh, I yearned for those moments. Even though I couldn't sleep, it was like little brief moments of sleep. Most people are like, no, I just need to sleep through the night. They're desperate for sleep when they have a newborn. And I had this odd time in my life where those were my best moments.
Have you ever wanted to send an anonymous message or letter to someone? For me, the most powerful therapy has always been to write. If I feel angry, sad, super inspired, or just wanting to feel understood, I write, and often I write letters to someone when those feelings involve a particular person. When it comes to divorce, co-parenting, step-parenting, new relationships, and everything that comes along with blended families, there tends to be a lot we don't say and a lot we wish we could say. And it feels so good writing a letter as if you were going to send it to that person. It's like this huge pressure off of your chest. It's kind of cathartic. Well, we want to offer you that forum where you can have a voice, anonymously, of course. If there's something you've always wanted to say to someone, but knew that out of respect or to save drama or because you knew it wouldn't be received well, now is your chance to get it out there and have it be read, because we would like to serve as your voice. So here's what to do. Head over to everythingalways.co/forum. That's FORUM, everythingalways.co/forum, and fill out the form. We won't know who you are, as it will be sent to us totally anonymously. It just hits our inbox, but we have no idea who it's coming from. As they come in, we will be sharing these on the podcast. We'll be able to reply to you. You'll still remain anonymous unless you reply back. And we'll let you know if it will be featured. It's 100% confidential. So what do you say? Ready to get it off your chest? Okay, back to the episode.
So then my attorney in that same conversation said to me, look, people are going to do what they're going to do, and there isn't anything you can do about it. You can only control how you respond. And so, of course, Mike and I talk about this a lot here. And I know this isn't new information to you, because if you've been listening to us, you know we talk about this a lot. You have control over yourself, not someone else. And you can either react to things or you can respond creatively and in a calm manner that actually moves the needle. But this simple concept at this time was like a light bulb going off. It was a total life changer, game changer. And from that moment on, I started to think differently. I wasn't perfect because it was a practice, but when my phone would buzz or I would refresh my email, I would consciously think to take a deep breath and acknowledge the feelings that I was having, and then realized, instead of just reacting, I would have a time to realize that I can respond however I want. And if I'm smart about it, I won't allow all of the negativity to ensue, and I won't feed into it, and I'll only respond to things that are necessary and helpful to respond to. And those were the moments that I realized I have power. I have power in here. And I actually never felt more empowered. I mean, there were times where it's like you achieved something really great, you performed really well, and you feel empowered. This was a whole new kind of empowering feeling for me. And suddenly I was in control when for years I felt I had no control. And it was also really empowering to take responsibility for that, to take responsibility for believing I had no control, and to take responsibility for the stories I was making up in my head and assuming that the worst was going to happen all the time. And suddenly it was less important whether something good or bad could happen. And it was more important that I had control and could choose how I would respond to it. Because it's inevitable that good things will happen and bad things will happen. The real struggle comes from what you feel inside and how not knowing how to deal with it. And I can tell you that reacting right off the bat is probably not going to yield you the best result. It's just not. It just usually doesn't. And some days I really nailed it. And I would go to bed feeling confident and proud. And then there were days that I would get riled up because a bad thing would happen. And I felt no control over my emotions. So it was definitely practice. It wasn't like I heard this and bam, I was rocking it each day. No, that didn't happen. The days I reacted though, the days that I did that and let the emotions take over, that's when I'd felt I'd lost my power, this cool superpower that I just discovered I had. So then I'd have to go through this process of forgiving myself and then learning from it, which actually was empowering too, and knowing that, well, that didn't go so well, so I'm going to make a better choice next time. And when that next time did come, because it inevitably did, I felt even more empowered because I was like, oh, look at that. I had the power, I had the control to not let it get the best of me and to respond in a really good way. And the more I did that, the more this became so easy. It was like week after week, even just day after day, week after week, month after month. Now it's like years later. So now it was just saying, okay, all I need to do in any hard moment is this. So simple. Don't react. Just that. Don't react. And instead, sit there, acknowledge the feelings, process them, write them out. I would journal. I have to write things out. That's what helps me a ton. And then I could think about it. I could think about it, but not react. That was the rule. No matter how crushing or upsetting something might be, I would not react. And here's the thing. You almost immediately shift and feel better because you're owning your power again. Just that choice right there, you're owning your power again. But if I did the opposite, I got the opposite reaction. Reacting always led me to the feelings of disempowerment and unrest, what I absolutely didn't want. And I didn't want those cycles. And by the way, when you start practicing this, you gain so much energy. It's crazy. You sleep better, you think better, you just do better because you're not being drained with all of this negative energy. You're now replacing that with good, vibrant energy, empowering energy. And you find yourself in a place where you're more open now to receiving because you're not in your ego state. When you're in a state of ego, it's like you have this wall up, you're blocked, you can't receive. But when you're in a receiving state, you can actually begin to really transform as a person. Look, so many of us complain about what our ex is or isn't doing. We complain about our husband's ex-wife or the ex-husband's new wife or her ex-husband, whatever. You complain about the kids, the stepkids, the in-laws. We can all find something to complain about and be angry about. But when you're in that state, that's when you're closed off. That's when the drain happens and it's like this vampire sucking all of the good energy out of you. And it's almost like you start to find more things to be upset about because then that negativity feeds on negativity and you just keep trying to keep it going because you have no more good energy in there. It's all been sucked out. The thing to realize is that your complaining doesn't fix any of those problems. Those things that you're complaining about may change and they may not. You just don't have control over that. You only have control on how you respond. And even more so, you have control by not reacting. and you don't need to defend yourself on everything. You don't have to prove a point to certain people. Think of who you're trying to prove a point to, by the way. Do you really need to prove a point to that person? You know your truth. That's the most important. The people that love you and respect you know your truth. That's what matters. If you're having to go prove it, if you're having to go put it out there to get everybody's buy-in on social media, for example, right? I mean, talk about a place that breeds reaction, reaction, reaction. Every day we're seeing such loud reactions on social media. That's the whole purpose of it, right? That's what keeps these sites going. They need people to get riled up. And then people use it when they need to vent about personal things. And I think it is so great to be part of certain communities where you can share those things. But I would invite you to look at who you're trying to prove a point to. Who are you trying to impress or get buy-in from? And are you doing that because you're not sure of your own truth? Because the person that's doing that, or the person that is riling you up to make you feel like you have to do this big reaction, they probably actually see your truth too, on some level. And maybe they don't like it. But that's their ego, and they're reacting, and they're dumping on you, and it doesn't do either of you any good at all. Like, not at all. The only good that comes out of it is if you both realize, holy crap, that was really unproductive and stupid. Can we not do that again? Then something good comes out of it. But otherwise, if you're going to keep that cycle up over and over again, it's just not good. And as you start to realize that you don't have to prove a point to anybody, and you just stop trying to defend yourself all the time, you realize that you don't even get offended anymore. That's the coolest thing. That's the coolest thing that happens. It's like, you know your truth. You're not trying to convince somebody else of it because you know it. It's just there. You're not offended anymore. And you're not taking it personally anymore when somebody does their name calling or whatever it is that they do. It's a pretty amazing side effect. You don't have to engage unless you want to. Just as you have a choice to write a comment on social media and hit send, or make a post and hit publish, you have a choice to engage or not with any other person, and you get to choose how you do it if you do engage. Think about what you want to happen. What is the result you're going for? So I learned this gift of not reacting, going through something super painful, like many of us listening to this have, whether it's a breakup, a divorce, a betrayal, trouble with your kids, some type of hurt. And if you've listened this far, I'm guessing you relate to a lot of those feelings. You've been through something difficult and it's painful. Out of what I went through came the best transformation that I could have ever asked for, because it's a simple practice that opened me up to learning so much more, just being a better person in general and living a better quality life. It's like I remember being that person who could react, but it's a long time ago and it's so icky. I would never go back to that. And it's such a happier, better place to be somebody who does not react and who instead responds creatively, and who instead has control and realizes that good things and bad things happen no matter what. Reading a personal development book doesn't mean that now you only have good things happen in your life. What it means is that you have the mindset to turn bad things into good things, that you have the power to turn what's not in your control. You have the power to see it differently, to have a different perspective, to really learn from it and have something good come from it. And you know what? Sometimes nothing good comes from something. That is true too. I'd like to say that every single awful thing has a really good outcome. Oh, it happened for this. It happened because, I needed to meet this person. Yes, all those things are beautiful and wonderful. But at the end of the day, sometimes bad things happen and maybe something good doesn't come from it. But what you can do, there's so many other things in your life. There's other things that led you to that you can turn into a really good positive thing. Nothing feels better. And all of these things, a good thing that can happen is a temporary feeling of this is nice. But the long-term feeling that you really want to go for is feeling empowered and feeling in control. And seriously, this simple gift of not reacting was the best thing to get me there, because it does, like I said, open you up to learning so much more. You're just open now to absorb so much more. And by the way, this whole not reacting is a great tool for parents and step-parents. Those of you listening, it's an incredible tool when parenting your kids, and especially with teens, especially if you are dealing with a teen that's going through a lot, and maybe there's some attitude stuff happening, or maybe it's a step teen that you're not getting along with. It's a really great go-to tool. So if you already practice it, awesome. You're probably not even listening anymore. But if it's something that you're like, I need help on this, then just try. Commit to one full day of not reacting and see how you feel at the end of the day. And I hope that it helps you as much as it has helped me. Sending love to you all. Until next time.
Thank you so much for listening. And we like to say, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love, and be bold enough to share it with someone you don't. See you next time.